Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that years have slipped by. Your dreams remain distant shadows. The goals you once set for yourself have faded into the background. The life you envisioned feels more like a fantasy than a real possibility. You move through your days as if on autopilot, waiting for change, but nothing ever shifts. Have you ever wondered why this happens? Why do some people take bold action and transform their lives while others remain trapped in hesitation and inaction? There is a silent force that may be sabotaging your happiness, success, and potential without you even realizing it. That force is passivity, the habit of standing still while life moves forward without you. Passivity is a subtle trap. It disguises itself as patience, as careful planning, as harmless waiting. But in truth, it is a slow poison. It keeps you in situations that no longer fulfill you. It allows fear to dictate your choices. It convinces you that waiting is safer than acting, when deep down you know that action is the only way forward. Carl Jung once wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Passivity thrives because it whispers to you that you are not ready, that you must delay, that you should wait for the perfect moment. But there is no perfect moment. There is only now. And the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to act. Where does this destructive pattern come from? Psychologists have studied it for decades. Martin Seligman, the father of positive psychology, described it with the concept of learned helplessness. In his experiments, dogs exposed to repeated negative experiences eventually stopped trying to escape, even when freedom was right in front of them. Humans are no different. After repeated rejection, failure, or discouragement, we begin to believe our efforts are meaningless. That belief seeps into our mindset and becomes our reality. But failure is not the only root of passivity. One of the most dangerous causes is something deceptively comforting. It is comfort itself. Have you noticed how easy it is to stay in routines even if those routines make you unhappy? The human brain is wired for safety and predictability. For our ancestors, this instinct kept them alive by avoiding risk. But in the modern world, this survival instinct betrays us. We cling to the familiar even when it is not what we want. Days blur into weeks, weeks into years, and life passes us by. This is the true danger of passivity. It does not sound alarms. It does not announce itself as a threat. It works in silence. It whispers that you can start tomorrow, that you have time, that waiting is safer. But tomorrow rarely comes. And the longer you postpone, the harder it becomes to step forward. Philosopher Viktor Frankl, a survivor of the Holocaust, wrote that the main drive of human beings is not pleasure, as Freud argued, nor power, as Nietzsche claimed, but meaning. When people lack meaning, they drift through life trapped in emptiness and stagnation. And nothing robs life of meaning more effectively than passivity. Think about it. When was the last time you felt truly alive? Was it in a moment of hesitation, when you held back and avoided risk? Or was it when you stepped beyond your comfort zone, when you took a leap of faith, when you pursued something that mattered deeply? Meaning is never found in passivity. It is created through action. And yet people remain stuck. Even when they know change is needed, they hesitate. Imagine standing at the edge of a decision, knowing that action could change everything. You tell yourself you need more time. You promise yourself you will start tomorrow. But tomorrow turns into weeks and then into years, and nothing changes. This is the invisible grip of passivity at work. The question is clear. Why do we allow this to happen? Why do we keep ourselves frozen even when we know that action is the only way forward? To answer this, we must understand a deeper truth: the comfort trap. At first, comfort seems like a blessing. But the more comfortable we become, the less likely we are to take the risks that bring growth. Comfort feels safe in the moment, but it often costs us our future. At first glance, comfort seems harmless. Who would not want to feel safe, secure, and at ease? But here lies the paradox. The more comfortable we become, the less likely we are to take the risks that bring real growth. Comfort feels soothing in the present, but it quietly steals long-term fulfillment. Think about the job you dislike yet continue in because starting fresh feels overwhelming. or the relationship that no longer brings joy yet you remain because the thought of change seems too heavy to bear. This is the comfort trap in action. It convinces you that staying where you are is safer than facing the unknown. But the truth is that the greatest regrets in life rarely come from mistakes we made but from the chances we never took. Our brains are wired to avoid uncertainty. For early humans, this instinct was essential for survival. Predictability meant safety while risk often meant danger. But in the modern world, this same instinct often betrays us. Instead of protecting us from threats, it shields us from opportunities. Instead of saving our lives, it limits them. Here is the harsh reality. No one has ever achieved greatness by staying comfortable. Every person who ever accomplished something meaningful confronted discomfort, uncertainty, and fear. The difference between those who succeed and those who remain stuck is not intelligence or luck. It is the willingness to act despite fear. Philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow." When you have purpose, you can endure discomfort and take risks because you know what you are fighting for. But without a why, comfort becomes a prison. It lulls you into waiting, convinces you to settle, and quietly keeps you from ever discovering what you are capable of. So how do you break free from this silent prison? The first step is awareness. You must learn to recognize passivity not only in the big decisions but in the small daily choices that shape your life. It is in the hesitation before speaking up, the delay before starting something meaningful, the endless scroll on your phone instead of using that time for growth. Every small act of passivity compounds until it defines your life. Carl Jung offered a powerful reminder about this tendency. He wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." Passivity thrives because it allows you to avoid the uncomfortable truth of who you are and what you want. It gives you the illusion of safety, but at the cost of never meeting your deeper self. This is why self-awareness is essential. Ask yourself honestly, where am I postponing action? Where am I letting fear or comfort dictate my choices? What would my life look like if I stopped hesitating and started moving? The answers will often be uncomfortable. But discomfort is not the enemy. It is the doorway to growth. Take a simple example. Imagine you want to change careers but you feel uncertain. You tell yourself you will wait until you feel confident. But confidence never arrives before action. It arrives because of action. The longer you wait, the heavier the fear becomes. This is how comfort disguises itself as patience when in truth it is avoidance. Psychologists like Carol Dweck have shown that mindset is the dividing line between growth and stagnation. A fixed mindset tells you that your skills, your character, your abilities are set in stone. So you avoid challenges for fear of failure. But a growth mindset teaches you that you can develop through effort and learning. In this mindset, failure is not proof of weakness but evidence of growth and progress. Passivity thrives in the fixed mindset. It tells you this is just who you are. It convinces you that change is impossible. But the moment you shift to a growth mindset, passivity begins to lose its grip. You realize that every skill can be developed, every habit can be reshaped, every identity can be rewritten. The comfort trap feeds on fear. But fear is not a signal to stop. Fear is a signal that you are standing at the edge of something meaningful. The question is not how to eliminate fear but how to move forward anyway. Philosophy reminds us that courage is not the absence of fear but the decision to act while afraid. Psychology shows us that every time you act in spite of fear, you rewire your brain. You teach it that discomfort is not danger. This is how you build psychological flexibility, the ability to keep moving forward even when you do not feel ready. Most people wait for certainty before acting, but certainty never comes, and waiting becomes a lifetime habit. The real power lies in starting before you feel ready, because action itself creates clarity. Jeff Bezos once explained that if you wait for 100% certainty before making a decision, you will always be too late. Successful people are not those who never feel doubt. They are those who choose to act in spite of it. So the next time you feel fear, ask yourself, Is this fear protecting me from real danger or from opportunity? More often than not, fear is simply the shadow of your potential, and the only way to move beyond it is to step forward anyway. Passivity convinces you to wait until you feel ready. But readiness is an illusion. You will never wake up one morning filled with endless motivation and perfect certainty. Real change begins not with feeling but with doing. Many people rely on motivation as the fuel for action. But motivation is unreliable. It rises and falls with your mood, your energy, and your circumstances. If you wait to feel inspired, you will wait forever. Discipline, not motivation, is what creates transformation. Discipline is choosing to act even when you do not feel like it. It is making decisions based on your values rather than your emotions. It is showing up for yourself again and again in small ways until those small steps compound into something extraordinary. James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, captured this perfectly. He wrote that success is not about massive overnight change but about small, consistent improvements. A 1% improvement each day may seem tiny, but over time those small actions compound into life-changing results. Passivity works the same way in reverse. Every hesitation, every delay, every excuse compounds until it becomes a life of regret. This is why you must learn to lower the barrier to action. Do not demand perfection or giant leaps. Start with the smallest possible step. Spend 5 minutes writing instead of waiting to begin your book someday. Do one push-up instead of promising yourself an hour at the gym. Make a single phone call instead of planning endlessly to change careers. Small actions are votes for the person you are becoming. Identity plays a crucial role here. Psychologists call it identity-based action. Instead of focusing only on goals, think about who you want to be. If you want to be disciplined, ask what would a disciplined person choose right now. If you want to be confident, ask what action a confident person would take in this moment. Every small act becomes proof of your new identity, and with each act momentum builds. Carl Jung reminded us that the shadow is not defeated by force but transformed through attention. Passivity is a shadow in your life. It whispers that you are lazy or incapable. But when you pay attention, you see the truth. You are not weak. You are simply waiting for permission that will never come. The act of moving forward, even in the smallest way, is how you transform that shadow. Fear will still arise. Your brain interprets uncertainty as danger and triggers the same survival instincts it would in a real threat. But action is how you teach your mind that discomfort is not fatal. Neuroscientists call this psychological flexibility, the ability to move forward even when you do not feel ready. Every time you act despite fear, you rewire your brain and make it easier the next time. This is why Mel Robbins created the 5-second rule. When you feel the instinct to act, count down from 5 and move before your brain talks you out of it. It works because it interrupts the loop of overthinking and forces you into motion. The longer you hesitate, the more fear and doubt grow. But when you act quickly, you bypass hesitation and prove to yourself that you can. Here is another truth. Action creates clarity, not the other way around. Most people believe they need a perfect plan before they start. But waiting for the perfect plan is just another form of passivity. You learn by doing. You adjust by moving. You grow by engaging with life rather than analyzing it endlessly. Philosopher Epictetus said, "No person is free who is not master of themselves." Mastery is not about controlling every outcome. It is about learning to act on what you can control even when circumstances are uncertain. It is about taking radical responsibility for your choices. Radical responsibility means fully accepting that your life is in your hands. It means no longer waiting for permission or blaming circumstances. It means refusing to place your future in the hands of luck, other people, or your past. It is a difficult truth because it removes every excuse for inaction. But it is also the most liberating truth you can embrace. Once you take ownership, you reclaim your power. So begin small. Take responsibility for one choice today. Decide that action is non-negotiable even if it is only a 5-minute step. Notice how it shifts the way you see yourself. Notice how each small act becomes momentum. And as momentum builds, you start to break the cycle of passivity that once held you back. One of the greatest reasons people remain passive is the fear of failure. The thought of making a mistake feels so threatening that many would rather do nothing at all than risk being wrong. But this avoidance is the most dangerous form of failure because it robs you of the chance to learn. We are taught to see failure as the opposite of success. Yet every story of progress, every breakthrough, every achievement is built on countless failed attempts. Failure is not the enemy of success. It is the pathway to it. Thomas Edison, when asked about the thousands of unsuccessful experiments before inventing the light bulb, replied, "I have not failed, I have simply found 10,000 ways that will not work." This mindset reveals a deeper truth. Failure is not a reflection of your worth or ability. It is feedback. It is information. When you step into action, mistakes are inevitable. But each mistake carries data about what does not work. It offers insight into what might work next. And only through repeated attempts do patterns emerge that lead you forward. Carl Jung once wrote, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." Failure does not define you. What defines you is how you respond to it. Do you allow it to silence you, or do you use it as fuel to keep moving? Most people never discover this because they stop too soon. They interpret a single setback as a verdict instead of a lesson. They carry the weight of shame and let it paralyze them. But shame is only the shadow's voice whispering that you are not enough. And like every shadow, it grows darker the more you avoid it. The courage to face failure is what transforms it. Each time you confront a mistake without turning away, you reclaim power over it. You teach yourself that falling is not the end but part of the process. Psychology calls this resilience, the ability to adapt and recover in the face of difficulty. Resilience is not about avoiding pain. It is about using pain as a stepping stone to strength. Consider how children learn to walk. They fall again and again, yet they do not label themselves as failures. Each fall becomes feedback, each attempt brings them closer to mastery. We too must return to this simple wisdom. Falling is part of learning. Failure is part of progress. Philosophy supports this truth. The Stoics believed that hardship is the training ground of virtue. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." What seems to block you is actually the material that shapes your strength. When you embrace this perspective, failure loses its power to paralyze. It becomes a tool, teacher, a mirror reflecting where growth is needed. Passivity thrives on the fear of failure. It convinces you to wait until you are certain you will not make a mistake. But certainty never arrives. The only certainty is that doing nothing guarantees nothing changes. The choice is not between failing or succeeding. The real choice is between failing by trying or failing by doing nothing. One path brings growth, the other brings regret. So how do you begin to shift your relationship with failure? First, reframe it. Do not ask, "Did I succeed or fail?" Ask, "What did I learn?" Second, detach your identity from the outcome. A failed attempt is not a failed self. You are not your results, you are the process of becoming. Third, practice small experiments. Instead of waiting for the perfect big step, take smaller actions that allow room for trial and error. Each small risk builds tolerance for uncertainty and reduces the weight of failure. Over time, you begin to see setbacks differently. The sting of mistakes softens. What once felt like defeat begins to feel like progress in disguise. You start to recognize that each failure is part of a larger pattern pulling you closer to your potential. In this way, failure becomes not the end of the story but the engine of growth. It becomes evidence that you are moving forward while others remain stuck in passivity. It becomes proof that you are alive, engaged, and willing to risk for meaning. And with every failed attempt, you step closer to freedom. Because freedom is not the absence of failure. It is the ability to move despite it. By now you can see that passivity is not a harmless habit. It is a silent force that shapes your life in ways you rarely notice. It convinces you to wait for the right time, to avoid mistakes, to stay safe in comfort. But in reality, it is stealing your time, your potential, and your meaning. The only way to break free is to take radical responsibility. Radical responsibility means accepting fully that your life is in your hands. It means refusing to blame your past, your circumstances, or other people for your stagnation. It means no more excuses, no more waiting for someone to rescue you. No one is coming to live your life for you. No one else can decide the direction you will take. That is your work and yours alone. At first, this truth feels heavy. It strips away every justification for hesitation. But with that weight comes liberation. Because once you accept full responsibility, you reclaim your power. You stop waiting for life to change and you start changing your life. Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Passivity is nothing more than unconscious living. It is allowing fear, habits, and old wounds to steer your choices while you pretend you are powerless. Radical responsibility is making the unconscious conscious. It is noticing the moment you hesitate and choosing to act anyway. It is facing the shadow not as an enemy but as a teacher, showing you where growth is needed. Action does not require certainty. Jeff Bezos once explained that if you wait for 100% certainty, you will always be too late. Life is never perfectly clear. The people who succeed are not the ones who had flawless plans. They are the ones who acted with incomplete information and adjusted along the way. Clarity is not a prerequisite for action. Action is the path to clarity. And what about failure? By now you know failure is not the opposite of success. It is a necessary part of it. Every mistake, every wrong turn, every false start is data. It is feedback that shapes better choices. The only true failure is refusing to try. Philosophy and psychology converge here. Philosophy tells us that life rewards courage and that meaning is created through engagement with the world. Psychology shows us that every time you act in the face of fear, you rewire your brain to trust yourself. Together they remind us that the life you want cannot be built in hesitation. It must be built in motion. So how do you make this practical? First, eliminate the idea that you must feel ready before you act. Motivation is not the starting point, it is the result of action. Second, redefine who you are. Stop seeing yourself as someone who struggles to act. Start proving to yourself through behavior that you are a person of action. Third, lower the barrier to movement. Begin with small, consistent steps because momentum is born in simplicity, not in overwhelm. And finally, decide faster. The longer you hesitate, the louder fear becomes. Give yourself short windows for decisions and move forward. When you live this way, something remarkable happens. Passivity no longer controls you. Fear becomes a signal, not a stop sign. Comfort is still there, but it no longer cages you. Failure still comes, but it no longer defines you. You begin to live with momentum, clarity, and confidence. Friedrich Nietzsche once observed that sometimes people do not want to hear the truth because it destroys their illusions. Passivity thrives on illusion. The illusion of endless time. The illusion of safety and waiting. The illusion that you can change later. Radical responsibility destroys these illusions. It confronts you with the truth that your life is happening right now. And here is the final choice. You can continue to wait, postpone, and hesitate. Or you can step forward and claim the life that belongs to you. Every decision, every small act, every moment of courage shapes who you become. Carl Jung reminded us, I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become. That is the privilege you hold. Not to erase your past, but to write your future. Not to be trapped by hesitation, but to be defined by action. So let this be the end of waiting. Let this be the beginning of motion. Because your future is not decided by luck or by circumstance. It is decided by the choices you make today. And the choice before you is simple. Stay in passivity or step into purpose. The life you want will not wait, and neither should you.